Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. I'm Tracy Stuckworth, your host, and I am very excited to welcome to the show today, Marion Nestle. She is one of the most respected voices in food policy and nutrition. She's a professor, an author, and an advocate whose groundbreaking work has shaped how we understand the politics behind what we eat. And yes, there are politics behind what we eat. She has written influential books like Food Politics, What to Eat, and her new upcoming release of What to Eat Now, which comes out in November. And she's also got this Let's Ask Marion book that I have. But she works to challenge us to think critically about food industry influence, public health, and our personal collective choices. So welcome to the show, Marion.
Oh, glad to be here.
And I heard you speak, and I was just telling you this offline. I heard you speak back in 2009 when I went through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and you really have stuck through with me through that and talking about, how do we understand nutrition? How do we make America healthy again? Because that's a big thing on in our news feeds these days. What has changed from 2009 and actually from when you began doing this to now?
Well, so many more people are interested in these questions.
Yeah.
And, it's always been a lively topic of conversation. But now we have a government that's talking about the same kind of issues that I talk about. It's kind of amazing.
And do you, in a couple of interviews that I've listened to, this, like how we look at the plates that we design. I mean, nothing's really changed, right? In what we think is nutritious. Is that correct?
Well, it depends on who you're talking about.
Yeah.
There are people who are really deeply interested in nutrition issues and other people who aren't. And so it just depends. But certainly it's possible now in a way that it really wasn't to the same extent. It's possible now to go to any supermarket in America and choose a healthy diet. It's not that hard to do if you know what you're doing and if you're lucky enough to know how to cook. I highly recommend cooking. It solves a lot of problems.
It does. And it helps a lot. But there's a lot of people, the cost of food is right now is going up.
Oh, it's shocking. Absolutely shocking.
Right. And it's hard I remember being in Atlanta and teaching some cooking classes with the Cook's Warehouse, and just people and people who are on SNAP and going to the farmer's market getting fresh vegetables, they take that home. They don't necessarily know what to do with it or that have the means to cook that specific food.
Right.
And how do we, with the same topic of MAHA, make America healthy again, how do we do that? What kind of policies do we need in place?
Well, first of all, you've got to make sure that people have enough money to buy food. That's the number one thing. If you want poor people to be able to afford to buy food, you make sure they have money. I'm sorry, it's that simple. And we saw that during the pandemic, that when poor people had more money, guess what? They ate better. And so did their kids.
Right. And since those policies have changed, come off since the COVID, it's a lot of kids are struggling. And now with the changes that were made with the big fat bill, they're going to lose that assistance, even more assistance. Is that correct?
Yeah, but not until after the next election.
So it won't be this administration's fault.
It won't be visible. But what is visible is what you mentioned, which is the absolutely shocking increase in food prices. So shocking that even I notice it. I don't buy that much and I don't spend that much on food, and I cook. But even I notice it. I'm just astounded by what foods cost. And if you don't have a lot of money, this is a serious problem.
Yeah. And I want to talk about food costs, bringing it to the meeting aspect of that. And I don't know if you know this, but a lot of times meeting planners, when you're serving pots of coffee, a gallon of coffee starts at about $160. plus gratuity and tax. So it's
That's why it costs so much to bring in catered food.
Right. And a buffet lunch starts at $82 plus tax and gratuity, which is $101. So how does the power structure behind food, and I guess bringing it back to food as politics, is there a policy in place or policies that need to be in place to help us mitigate the cost of food?
Sure. We could have government subsidies of healthy food. These are political decisions. Right now, the government supports corn and soybeans. And if you look at the corn supply, nearly half of it goes to feed animals, and the other half goes to fuel automobiles, of all stupid things. And that leaves very, very little corn to be eaten by people. That's where the subsidies go. If we wanted to reduce the cost of food for the population, we'd subsidize real food.
And that would be more of our small farmers versus the large conglomerates?
The government has never supported small farmers very well. Most of the money goes to the largest possible farmers, the mega industrial farms. Mm-hmm. Small farmers get hit so badly by what's happening that they're going out of business in droves. And the government has said it wants to do something about that. If it wants to do something about that, it has to start subsidizing food for people, not feed for animals or fuel for automobiles.
And what do the political powers, the industry power structures in the food system, because and I know you said in a lot of things that I've read by you and listened to you speak about, is that it's not, when you're thinking about nutrition, you have to think about the entire food system, how it's grown, how it's packaged and transported. What are the power structures in there that impact that?
Are you kidding? The bigger they are, the more money they have, and money is power in our society. Mm-hmm. These corporations give money to election campaigns. They withhold money for people they don't like, and they spend money to defeat candidates who aren't voting for them. We have a completely corrupt political system at this point. When people ask me what needs to change, the first thing that needs to change is to get money out of politics. And let's start electing people who care about public health more than corporate health.
Oh, so true. I mean, and I heard, like, in one video I listened to, you said you have doctors that can't even get in to see their own doctors.
Oh, yes, right. Don't even get me started on the healthcare system.
Right.
It's a disaster for everybody, and it's only getting worse.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. So let's jump to consumer trust. And when we're talking about this, and I want to go. So when I first heard you speak back in 2009, one of the things that really stuck to me was that the white nutrition box on the side of a packaged good, prepackaged good, is about, well, they have to be as transparent and as accurate as possible on that box, but on a lot of the other pieces of the box, they don't have to be as transparent, or they can use claims based on First Amendment rights. Mm-hmm. So how does the consumer trust, something they're buying, right? When if what's on the box is not necessarily true. They can't tell.
What is on the box is true. It has to be. They can't lie.
Okay.
So if they say they've got 14 grams of sugar, it's probably pretty close to 14 grams of sugar. Where things get fuzzy is in the kinds of claims that are made. But the factual information, whenever the FDA has checked, the big corporations certainly don't want to screw around with that.
Right.
And get caught, it would cost them a lot of money and a lot of embarrassment. So they're pretty good about how they do it. The FDA gives companies an enormous amount of flexibility in how they determine nutrition information. But it doesn't have to be precisely accurate. It just has to be, in the right ballpark to give you an idea of what's in there. And I'm a great believer in reading nutrition facts labels, and particularly in reading ingredient lists. You learn a lot from those.
And one of the things that I'm really focused on too is allergens and knowing what's in our food and being transparent with that. And there's been a lot of label changes on how it has to be labeled, et cetera. Can we, how do corporations or event planners or the Hiltons and the Sodexos of the world help build trust around that nutrition information, including allergens and vegan, is this vegan or not?
If I were them, I'd do my own testing, but I'm not
Yeah.
them. The allergen thing is really, really difficult because for somebody with celiac disease, for example, having gluten in a product and not having it labeled is a really terrible thing. That's that's really health threatening in a serious way. And for people who, have the disease that makes them exceedingly allergic to fava beans and the proteins in fava beans, if they eat a fava bean, they're dead. Their red cells are all going to burst. So it's really important for people with serious allergies to know what's in a food, and manufacturers do the best they can with it. But that's why you see, and they're trying to cover themselves too, which is why you see these statements may be produced in a factory that produces wheat or nuts or whatever.
Right.
The FDA only requires listing 9 allergens.
Right.
If you're allergic to something else, you're on your own. It's really pretty tough. And
it is.
If you go to a restaurant, you really need to ask a lot of questions.
Yes, definitely. In cross contact, a variety of different things, how it's prepared. So what responsibilities do you feel that planners and food service professionals have in creating that safe and transparent and ethical dining experiences? Because there's so much ethics behind what we're served as well.
Well, you don't want to kill your customers.
Right.
The first thing you do is you don't want them to get bacterial illnesses. You don't want to cause food poisoning incidents. That's bad for business. Not only bad for the people who get sick, but it's not good for business. So that, it seems to me, is the number one priority: is don't kill your customers. As for what the responsibility is of food service providers, it depends on who's paying them. If I go to events that are catered by food service companies, first of all, the food is free, and usually, and I'm going to eat, whatever I want from it and as much as I want. And there's an enormous waste built into that system. But that's how the system works. I don't think there's a whole lot you can do about it. Are some service companies responsible for the health of their customers? They're certainly responsible for not killing them. And beyond that, it depends on who's paying them, and they're trying to do it at the lowest possible cost. These are complicated things.
Yeah, it's not, the food system is not a simple, system. Like picking checking off a box and picking menu items.
Everybody in it is trying to make money. If you follow the money through all of it, I think you learn a lot about how the system works. But it seems to me that for food service providers, you do what the client wants, and you don't have a lot of maneuverability in that. And you certainly can't oppose what the client wants, because otherwise you won't get paid, and they won't hire you.
Very true.
So that's a service business. And so what your responsibility is within what the client wants and what you're able to do and what you're able to afford to do. You do the best you can.
With the price of food coming up, and margins are decreasing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
And
it used to be that food costs were the lowest part of everything that anybody had to do, because the cost of labor and equipment, transportation, and rent was so much higher than everything else. But with food costs going up, this is now a place where companies are going to try to cut costs.
Well, and I was chatting with the chef yesterday, and he said his business is booming. He works for a manufacturer. And I said, what business is booming? The restaurant business is booming. And I said, for independents. He's like, no, these are all chains. So the independents are getting hit harder because they're using, I think, more local fresh foods than the processed foods that some of the chains use.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a big company, you're going to be sourcing everything you're using at the lowest possible price you can get it, which hurts local producers because they don't have that kind of scale.
Right, exactly.
So it's, I don't think the system works very well for health.
No? Can you explain a little bit more than that?
Yeah, because health is expensive. Healthier food costs more. And certainly if it's fresher and it's going to taste better, but that costs more because you have to keep it cold. You have to keep it uncontaminated. I'm going to keep coming back to that because I think that's the biggest issue in food service is not killing your customers, not making your customers sick. And I've certainly been to events where there was some product in there that everybody who ate got sick. It's not pleasant. It goes, most of the time it goes away in a couple of days, but some people get really, really, really sick from these things. And you don't want to do that. And you absolutely have to prevent it.
Yeah. Now, one of the ways that you describe yourself is an advocate versus an advocate or an activist. In the context of events and hospitality or food service, how can we use food as a form of advocacy and why should we care to do that? Want to do that?
You can make healthy foods taste good. That would be a big step forward. You can make sure that there are healthy options at every single thing you're doing. But again, you're constrained by whoever your client is. So the big advocacy issue is to get people who use catering services and use meeting services to do it in a healthy way. That's where the advocacy has to go.
And finding them, there are more and more coming out, but still there's some that are stuck with corporate. What did somebody say the other day? It's their corporate standard, right? This is what we do. This is how we do it, and we can't waver from that. Yeah,
they can. They just don't want to.
Right. Okay, you've often critiqued the entanglements between food industry, government, and science. How do we untangle? Is there a way to untangle it? Is there a move to untangle it? Or is it still going back to we've got to get money out of politics?
You've got to get money out of politics. You have to overturn the Supreme Court decision in Citizens United. That really has to be repealed. That allowed unlimited amounts of corporate money into politics, undisclosed. So they don't have to say who's paying for what or how they're doing it. That was a corruption act that really enabled a lot of very serious problems. And, we need a government that's interested in public health. I wish we had one.
Right. Yeah. It would be nice. So you've been food labor, or I'm trying to find my next question. The events often generate a lot of surplus food. And going back to, the price of food and things being cut and needs for that, what role do you believe that the events industry can play in supporting food justice? And I was talking to somebody this morning, about food inclusion and doing that as well and giving options. But do you have any other, whether it's through donations, education, or sourcing?
Well, everybody says, well, whatever's left over should be given to places that distribute free food to the poor. I keep coming back to it, food safety problems about that. But a lot of organizations are doing that and working on it. That seems like a reasonable thing to do if you're doing it. But I worry about the giving free food to the poor is unsustainable, because what if the sources dry up, which is what's happening now, as money has been withdrawn from food banks and food distribution and food assistance in general. These sources are drying up, and it's going to be very, very difficult. This is a parallel food system in this country that should disappear instantly and be replaced by giving more money to the poor. That would save everybody a lot of money across the board. Even though it seems like a lot of money, it would save a lot of money in the long run, and would would save these organizations from having to do all this work to try to make up for what the government is not doing.
Mm-hmm.
You can never make up for what the government is not doing. That's why government action is so important. And it's why the cuts to food assistance now are so absolutely terrible.
Yeah, there are so many more. And I think meeting professionals and their food service partners have to really plan for this in advance, because if you are going to have surplus, what are you going to do with it instead of throwing it into?
Yeah, you should have a system in place, absolutely,
right. Mm-hmm.
where somebody just scoops by and picks up whatever you've got. It saves you a lot of problems too.
Right, exactly.
You don't have to dispose of it.
Well, which comes to a sustainability question. You've emphasized the importance of sustainability, and I know you've talked about the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, and there's 17 of them, which makes it very, challenging to try to follow all of them at one time. But what practical steps can the meetings industry, who's producing millions of meals a year, take to align environmental goals? What do you think the most important environmental goals right now are?
Find a way to dispose of everything that you're throwing away, even if it goes to pet food. That would be a very good use for it. Because it's going to be cooked. So if there are bad bacteria in it, they're going to get killed. So that would be one way. Not overbuying would be another.
Mm-hmm.
And not using a lot of non-biodegradable dishes, implements, forks, spoons, whatever. In every way in which it's possible to make the waste biodegradable, it seems like it would be a good idea.
Definitely, yeah. Things that we can do. So what can we? All right, I want to jump to something else that I read on your blog the other day about a new study that came out about sugary beverages, not necessarily sugars in food, but associated with the increased risk in diabetes and other medical conditions, and ultra processed foods. So what can we look differently at providing different breakfast wellness meals if we're relying on ultra processed foods?
Well, don't rely on them. Cook them. Cooking is not all that difficult. It's fun. To the extent possible, you should be cooking foods, not buying them in packages.
But the packaging, the ultra processed ones are a lot cheaper.
That's right. That's a policy issue. That's because the cost of the basic ingredients in ultra-processed foods is supported by the government. If the government supported fresh foods and supported small farms producing food for people rather than food for animals or feed for animals or fuel for automobiles, we would have a very different system. These are political choices.
And speaking of political choices, vote with your fork, but also vote to vote. So how do we find that? What's the best way to vote with your fork and vote for the right?
Well, voting with your fork is making your individual food choice, deciding on what kinds of products you're going to buy. And all of those are choices that have a big impact on the companies that are making those foods. Voting with your vote means electing people who are interested in public health and social issues rather than corporate health. This is the way politics works in this country. And right now we're in a particular political situation where there isn't a lot of democracy going on. We need to take back democracy.
Right. Yep. So before we got on the show, you said that the MAHA, the Make America Great second report is coming out today. Can you talk about the first one, and then is there any explanation about what's coming up forward?
No, there are no hints at all as far as I know. The first MAHA report was a analysis of the state of health of America's children, and it was devastating. It painted a picture of kids who are sick, unhealthy, overweight, at risk for chronic disease, upset mentally and physically. I mean, it's really, if you're paying any attention to it, you know how distressed kids are these days.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second report is supposed to be the one that says what the government is going to do about it. And the only hints we've had, and I don't know what this report is going to say, it's supposed to come out any minute now. But we've had some hints that it will probably say that artificial colors have to be removed from the food supply, which the government has already gotten most food companies to agree to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to close the generally recognized as safe loophole so that companies will no longer be able to determine for themselves whether food additives are safe.
Mm-hmm.
It has said that seed oils are poison, sugar is poison, high fructose corn syrup is poison. I don't know what they're going to do about all that. And we'll find out when it comes out. I'm really curious.
And just kind of going back, this is going back to Biden's administration, and he had the White House conference on nutrition. I mean, is this, I'm assuming, a stark difference from what was positioned then, right? With what we need, because that was the first White House conference on nutrition in 50 years, right?
Yeah, that conference was amazing. It was mainly, as I could tell, about food as medicine and precision nutrition. It did not come out with major public health recommendations. It avoided talking about chronic disease and obesity. I'm not sure whether, I was at that conference. I didn't find it very useful. And I was quite surprised that it didn't talk more about what I see as the major public health issues in America today related to diet, which is obesity and its consequences. 75% of American adults are overweight or obese, and 20 to 30% of children. I mean, those are extraordinary percentages. And I was just thinking that when I was growing up, my height and weight were average. Absolutely dead center average. And now I am considered on the extreme thin side.
Oh, wow.
And my height and weight haven't changed. So the society has moved to people being much heavier than they were 40 or 50 years ago. And is this healthy? No, it's not.
And is that the result? I mean, what was that the result of ultra processed foods?
It's the result of people eating more.
Okay.
There's tremendous amounts of very good evidence that people started eating more starting in the 1980s and going to 2000. They increased their calorie intake by several hundred a day. And I think larger portions account for that. You don't even have to do anything more complicated than that. It was when muffins got bigger, bagels got bigger, restaurants started serving ridiculous amounts of food. When you have a lot of food in front of you, you eat more. You're human. That's what we humans do when confronted with food. And if you were eating more ultra-processed food, you didn't notice it. Right. You can't tell that you're eating more because those foods go down so easily and quickly that you just don't notice it. So, big problem. Once you get used to large portions, it's really hard to go back. You feel like you're being cheated.
Right. And your mind is telling you that you're starving because you haven't had as much food.
Right.
Yeah.
But in fact, You might be eating a completely reasonable amount. But again, there's tons of evidence that people eat more calories from larger portions.
Well, it reminds me of like the Seinfeld, the muffin top conversation, right? Like the top of the muffin can just be the portion. That's all you need. You don't need the rest of it, right?
Get rid of the rest. Small muffins taste better.
They do, yeah, and you can just pop them in your mouth.
They have a better surface to volume ratio.
Right. All right, I have a couple of rapid fire questions that I want to ask you. Okay, what's one food policy you wish everyone understood?
I'm sorry, you caught me off guard here. That larger portions have more calories.
Okay, because people don't think about it. Yeah, right.
I wish everybody understood that. It's not intuitively obvious.
Ultra processed food, and I'm asking you this question because I watched a video. You said I'm not a proponent of telling you not to eat what I won't eat myself, because you're like, you don't want to get rid of all ultra processed food. So ultra processed food, occasional convenience or never worth it?
If you love them, eat them, just not in large quantities.
And what is your favorite snack?
Ice cream, always.
Yeah. Any particular flavor?
I'm a purist. I like vanilla, and I actually like homemade vanilla, which is not ultra processed.
That is true. That is true. Okay, so with that, which ties me into your go-to comfort food after a long day. A bowl of
ice cream.
That ice cream. Okay. If you weren't working
I like chips. I like Oreo cookies. I like all those things. I just try not to eat too much of them at any one time.
Okay. And that's the thing is, like, don't eat them all at once, right? Like, don't eat a whole bag of Fig Newtons or whatever, right?
Yeah, if those foods are saying eat me, and you can't resist, you better not have them in the house.
Right. Well, and even like if you're on a road trip and you buy that bag, you're not really looking at the fact that that's like 10 portions in one bag, or you're only supposed to eat 5 chips, right, per serving.
Yeah. Yes, and that's clearly ridiculous.
Right. Okay, so if you weren't working in food policy, what would you be doing?
I'm retired.
You're okay. So, but you're running around the country and the world still working and doing this.
What retirement looks like. My favorite activity is writing books. I really like doing it. That's what I'm doing.
Okay. And which food trend makes you roll your eyes the most?
Protein.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, it's the hot nutrient. Everybody thinks they need more protein, and most of us get twice the amount we need already. We don't need any more.
Okay, because we get it. It's in fruits and vegetables, or vegetables.
It's in everything.
Okay, so talk your new book, which What to Eat Now, right? And I heard you say that you thought it would only take you 3 months, but it took you 3 years.
I actually thought it would take 6 months.
6 months. Okay.
I thought the first edition of the book read pretty well. It never occurred to me that I would have to do the entire book over again, which is what I ended up doing, and it took 3 years.
And the first one came out in what year?
2006.
Okay, so almost 20 years later. What are some new things that you've added to the book?
Well, it has new chapters on plant-based meats and dairy products, on pet food, and on edibles, cannabis edibles.
Okay.
They're showing up in supermarkets, but all of the rest of it was rewritten and brought up to date. I was shocked to find out that every single product that I had used as an example in the 2006 edition no longer existed. You couldn't find it in supermarkets. Those products are gone. So I needed new examples. Supermarkets have been completely reorganized in order to account for online shopping.
Okay.
Barely existed 20 years ago, and is now accounts for substantial fractions of supermarket sales, and they had to redesign the entire store to account for that. One good trend is that there used to be entire aisles devoted to full sugar Coke and Pepsi, and now there are entire aisles devoted to bottled waters of one kind or another, sweetened, flavored, with and without alcohol and cannabis, whatever. They're all there. So that was a big change. There were lots and lots of changes. Every section of the supermarket presented me with surprises.
That's really interesting because we still see the Oreos that we grew up with, but now there's Oreos that are gluten free, and now that we know that Oreos are vegan, and
20 different kinds of Oreos.
Right, exactly. And 20 different kinds of water or more, right?
Oh, many more. And 20 different kinds of Cheerios.
Right, exactly. That reminded me. Part of that book is called you've taken an excerpt out of it, and it's called The Fish Counter. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, the publisher was planning a series of books on oceans, rivers, and streams, and published 5 of them, one of which is the fish chapters from What Do You Eat Now. All of the books are based on previous writings of the 5 authors, and mine are too. And again, I was surprised. It worked really well as a separate book. It's a little tiny thing. It's more like a pamphlet than anything else, but I think it works really well as a separate book.
I have it on Kindle. I don't have it to pick up and show people, but yeah, it's really interesting. And what's the?
If you'll wait 1 second, I'll show it to you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I just happen to have it right here. I think it's the cutest thing ever, but look how narrow it is. It's just tiny. And they all have beautiful covers. I just love the cover.
That's great illustration. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So in that context of the book, what do you talk about?
Well, in the fish chapters, I talk about the fish counter, which I consider to be the Wild West of supermarkets, because unless you're really sophisticated, you can't tell one kind of fish from another. And in many places where fish is sold, the sellers don't know one kind from another either. So if you want to know what you're buying, whether it's been previously frozen, whether it's been dyed, whether it's got additives in it, you're lucky if the place that you buy them labels it appropriately. And the oceans are fished to the point where there's hardly anything left. So there are big issues about sustainability. There are big issues about fish farming. Where things are farmed, how things are farmed, whether the fish taste is good. Farmed fish have to be fed other fish in order to get the right kinds of nutrients. That raises all kinds of problems. I mean, this is a really, really complicated food these days. And if you love eating seafood, a lot of it is imported, and imported from places that don't have the kind of safety standards that we have.
Right.
So again, safety is an issue. So I talk about all those things.
Okay. Well, and on that note, last night I went and bought salmon at Publix, and my mom was like, "Oh, it's really great because it's never been frozen." So I bought the wild, but they had 4 different kinds of farms, and I questioned the fishmonger, if you can call that what his job is at Publix, and he went through a index card box to find me the label to show me when it was caught. And so I was impressed by that.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
But look at the research you had to do.
Right. Yeah.
And for most people don't want to bother with doing that research. They just want to buy the fish. And of course, the cost of wild salmon is breathtaking. And I cite the studies in which people went around which reporters went around to supermarkets to find out whether the salmon was wild or farmed. And they found lots of wild fish, labeled as wild that was actually farmed and priced 5 times higher. Because you can do that. Wild salmon doesn't have the artificial dye in it, whereas farmed salmon does, because nobody would buy farmed salmon if it weren't dyed.
Now, are those dyes going to get banned? Are those the same dyes?
They're not bad dyes. They're antioxidant dyes. They're not terrible. And the astaxanthin industry
gum
has gone to a lot of trouble to demonstrate that the particular dye that's used is a beneficial antioxidant.
Okay. All right.
Whatever.
Exactly.
Things that are dyed.
Right. Exactly. And one of my friends that I met recently, she's allergic to red dye. She found out after getting allergy shots.
Ooh.
And for environmental, and she was taking Benadryl to counteract her allergic reactions, and the red dye was in the Benadryl.
Oh,
and
so
I know. So yeah, I know. And she's 30 something years old. So this is something that came on, later in life, and it's crazy.
She may be very fortunate because the Make America Healthy Again is trying to get rid of all of those dyes.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, I so thank you for being on the show with me, and completely, going food service wise versus consumer, but what is one thing that you think we should all pay attention to as far as our nutrition is concerned that, going forward, and as meeting planners, like helping our attendees eat safer and healthier?
Well, the big issue is calories.
Okay.
You don't want to overeat calories for the height and weight that you have. And you can tell whether you're overeating calories. All you have to do is weigh yourself on a scale. If your weight is going up, you're overeating calories.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. The easiest way to do that. Right. Okay, so
really.
All right, everybody, you can connect with Marion and read her blogs. Do you blog pretty much daily, or is it weekly?
Yeah, Monday through Friday. And you can easily subscribe and have it delivered to your email once a day. And I promise, only once a day.
Okay. And they're short. They're not super long. Right. And you give references if they want to dig in, which I think is great.
Yeah. I do a lot of linking so you can do your own research, and you don't have to read them if you don't want to.
Right. Well, and then, here's the what to eat. You can pre-order it. You've got the link on your website as well, but that's a link to order What to Eat Now, which comes out in November.
It does, November 11th. I can't wait. It's an enormous book.
Yeah? How many pages?
It's going to be close to, I haven't seen the final one, but it'll be close to 750 pages.
Oh, wow. That is a big book.
It's huge.
But that means there's so much to learn about food.
Yes. But it's not the Great Western novel. It's not the Great Western novel. I think of it more as an encyclopedia.
And the encyclopedias are good documents to have.
They have around. You can read it piece by piece and skip around.
Exactly. Well, Marion, again, thank you so much for joining me on Eating at a Meeting. And I look forward to hearing and reading about your assessment of the second report coming out today.
I can't wait to see it. I hope it does come out today. It'll be fun to see it. Thanks so much for having me on.
You're welcome, Marion. And until next week, stay safe and eat well. Thank you.